Welcome, please, Mr. Buddy Hackett.
Which is what I heard the guy
We
yell.
discuss what we're going to talk about, and that's what makes it fun. We just start on a direction, whatever happens.
Well, if you want to recall what happened that day, it was terrific.
There was a specific kind of magic that happened whenever this man walked out from behind that curtain and dropped onto the couch next to Johnny Carson. The room didn't just get funnier. It changed shape. Johnny stopped running the show and became the audience. Tonight we're going deep into the wildest, strangest, most unforgettable moments this comic ever pulled off live on national television, and by the end you'll understand exactly why some people still call him the greatest talk show guest who ever lived. We start with a bit that sounds almost too simple to work, and that's exactly why it destroys every single time. A man walks into a doctor's office and announces he's been talking a certain unusual way his entire life and he's finally ready to fix it. He wants to sound normal.
He was the gun used to...
The doctor pulls his file, studies it for a moment, and delivers the driest possible diagnosis, something about how most people only have 2 of a certain thing and this man happens to have 4. That's it. That's the whole joke. No elaborate setup, no big finish. Just a straight face and a ridiculous premise sold with total conviction. The audience doesn't even see it coming until the doctor's tone lands, and then the whole room goes. Now here's where things get legendary.
Whatever happens, happens. But you usually come on and you just tell, once in a while you have just...
The duck story. If you've never heard this one, buckle up, because it might be the single greatest piece of stand-up storytelling ever performed on a late-night couch. A hunter shoots a duck out of the sky. The bird drops, bounces off a barn roof, and lands smack in the middle of someone else's backyard. The hunter climbs the fence to grab his prize, and that's when the farmer steps out. Big guy. Not happy. He informs the hunter that this is his yard, and therefore, by some backyard logic that makes perfect sense only in the moment, that is now his duck. The hunter objects. The farmer offers a compromise.
Didn't talk to me.
Never talked to you after the show was up.
They'll settle it country style. The hunter, understandably nervous, asks what exactly country style means. The farmer explains, completely deadpan, that they're going to take turns kicking each other in a very sensitive location, and whoever's still standing keeps the bird. The hunter, somehow, agrees to this. The farmer goes first, and delivers an absolutely devastating blow. The hunter goes down screaming. He writhes. He recovers. 30 minutes pass in total agony as he pulls himself together for his turn. He finally stands up, ready to deliver payback, and the farmer looks at him and says, "Keep the duck."
To say buttocks.
Buttocks is acceptable.
Buttocks is acceptable.
That's the ending. No revenge kick. No twist. Just a man deciding the duck simply isn't worth it anymore. It's absurd, it's perfectly timed, and it might be one of the most quoted comedy bits from the entire golden era of late-night television. Then there's the bathhouse story, and this one takes a hard left turn almost immediately. He's traveling with a friend, heading up to a traditional bath on the 5th floor of some building, and his friend makes him promise, swear on everything, that he won't get undressed until they're actually inside the private room. Naturally, he agrees, and naturally, he immediately strips down right there in the elevator. Why wait? In his mind, the logic is airtight. He doesn't know a single soul in the entire country, so what's the harm? He pictures the whole plan perfectly. The elevator opens on the 5th floor, he steps forward, and he cannonballs straight into the water. Except the elevator doesn't stop on 5.
$40 worth of food, and that was the only food consumed that night, was your one shrimp.
It stops on the ground floor. The doors slide open. And there he is, standing completely naked, in a crowded lobby, surrounded by a couple hundred stunned strangers. His deadpan reaction to the whole disaster, telling the crowd they don't need to bow to him, is the kind of unscripted brilliance you simply cannot write in advance. It's a masterclass in taking an embarrassing situation and turning it into pure gold through sheer commitment to the bit. One of the most fascinating moments from these appearances isn't even a joke in the traditional sense. It's watching him wrestle with himself on camera. He starts to bring up an old routine, then immediately backpedals, insisting he shouldn't say it. Carson eggs him on. He refuses again. This back and forth stretches out, layer after layer, each refusal funnier than the last, until the audience is practically begging him to just say the thing already. And when he finally caves, the release of tension in that studio is enormous. It's a reminder that sometimes the funniest part of a joke isn't the punchline itself, it's watching someone talk themselves into delivering it against their own better judgment. There's also a genuinely surprising piece of show business history buried in one of these conversations. He reveals that his real name growing up wasn't the name everyone knew him by at all. His birth name gets brought up, and he immediately shuts it down, claiming it sounds far too soft and delicate for a comedian's stage persona. Instead, as a kid, everyone in the neighborhood called him after a tough local guy people compared him to. That nickname stuck for years before show business rebranded him entirely. The story of how he eventually got his professional stage name is even better.
Did you like what I sent you? She said the celery tonic wasn't bad. But
he credits it to someone who suggested it right before an audition for a network radio and television role, a part he landed after coming home from military service. It's a small, human, completely unexpected detail wrapped inside what starts as a light-hearted joke about names. Then there's a segment where he tells Carson he's got a story that was told to him in strict confidence by a fellow comedian, someone who begged him never to repeat it on television. Naturally, he repeats it on television. That's part of what made him so magnetic. He frames the whole thing like a betrayal, like he's crossing some sacred comedy code, and the audience eats it up because they know exactly what's coming. The story itself involves a man who's lost everything financially going to beg a wealthy friend for money, claiming his wife is deathly ill and needs an operation.
Rose tree in the background with a dead duck hanging, which is what I think.
The friend refuses, convinced the money will just end up at the racetrack. The desperate man insists he already has money set aside for the horses, he just needs this for the operation. It's a perfect little piece of absurd logic, delivered with impeccable timing.
Sherry's 11 years younger than me. She said she wants to talk about ones that were put in an institution without any help.
Right.
Dogs make an appearance too, in a bit built around a forced clean substitution word that becomes the entire engine of the joke. A dog nearly attacks someone, and instead of anger, the response is simply offering the dog a cookie, followed by a very specific and increasingly ridiculous desire to locate the animal's head so he can deliver a kick to a very particular part of its anatomy. He keeps circling back to that one word, treating it like the most serious, dignified term in the English language, and the more seriously he treats it, the funnier it becomes. There's a follow-up bit built the exact same way, involving a woman with a very oddly specific date written somewhere she absolutely should not have a date written, and once again, the joke isn't really the setup, it's watching him milk that single word for every possible laugh. At one point the conversation veers completely off script into a rant about turkeys being, in his professional opinion, the dumbest birds on the planet, so dumb that they'll supposedly stare up at falling rain with their mouths open until they drown.
We'll be back in a second. We have to take a break. Here's the most original fragrance, Charlie.
From there he pivots into memories of never actually eating turkey growing up, because in his family, chicken was the answer to literally everything. A wedding, chicken. A funeral, chicken. A birth, chicken. It wasn't a special dish reserved for celebrations, it was simply the only thing his mother knew how to make, and the family spent years assuming it was some kind of deliberate culinary choice. There's a stretch where he practically ignores the format of a normal interview entirely and just fires off one bit after another with barely a breath in between. A line about heartburn tying directly into Jewish identity. A joke about buying cemetery plots together as some kind of eternal bonding experience, followed immediately by the blunt admission that he's not particularly thrilled about spending eternity with the person in question right now, let alone forever. The pacing in this stretch is relentless, setup after setup after setup, never giving the studio a chance to fully recover before the next laugh lands.
Wedding anniversary, but
Go ahead.
they wasn't around.
Marriage becomes fair game too, and he turns his own decades-long relationship into an ongoing bit rather than a sentimental moment. When Carson brings up his wife and mentions people once predicted the marriage wouldn't survive a year, he corrects the record with pride, noting they'd just celebrated an anniversary well past that mark. Then he immediately undercuts the warmth by joking that he's basically served enough marital time to be close to parole, treating decades of marriage like a prison sentence with a release date approaching. It's self-deprecating in the best possible way, poking fun at himself rather than his spouse, which is exactly why the audience laughs with him instead of feeling awkward. He also gets into a bit about his wife's sudden passion for interior decorating, joking that letting her practice her new hobby on his own house for years was basically training so she could eventually redecorate a friend's house professionally. He frames it like an investment that cost him everything he's ever earned, immediately followed by the observation that it's going to cost his friend even more, since apparently practice really does make perfect. It's a segment that plays out less like scripted material and more like he's workshopping fresh jokes live, testing which lines land and adjusting on the fly based on the studio's reaction in real time.
Smile. For who knows where love doth end, and the plague of boredom starts.
The duck material returns for a second round, this time walking into a drugstore looking for lip balm, and paying for it by simply saying to put it on the bill, a line so understated it barely reads as a joke until the delivery sells it completely. From there the bit escalates into a story about a child getting knocked out of his chair by his father after ordering something inappropriate at a restaurant, with a waitress trying to smooth things over by asking the kid what he'd actually like, only to get an answer built entirely around that same forced substitute word again. Each time he returns to that word, the laugh gets bigger, not smaller, because he's built an entire relationship with the audience around how absurdly seriously he treats it. Later there's a run built around old letters supposedly written by children, mined for accidental humor buried in completely innocent phrasing. None of it needs to be explicit or edgy, the comedy comes entirely from taking a kid's earnest, misspelled, badly worded sentence completely literally and finding the accidental joke hiding inside it. This particular stretch is remarkable because it isn't a quick 2-minute bit, it's an entire extended segment, proof that he could sustain a laugh for a full block of television rather than just landing one big punchline and moving on. One of the most unexpected pairings on this couch involves a famous singing cowboy actor, a real-life Western icon known for clean-cut, wholesome, all-American appeal. Instead of playing the respectful admirer, he immediately goes the opposite direction, cracking jokes about how there weren't exactly a lot of famous cowboys from his own background, suggesting that back where he grew up, the closest thing to cattle roping was tying up boxes in a stockroom. He tells a story about learning to ride for the first time, getting introduced to a horse with an intimidating name, and flatly refusing to get anywhere near it, demanding something calmer, something with a gentler name, something that sounds less like it belongs in a rodeo and more like it belongs at a quiet family dinner. The cowboy plays along beautifully, which only makes the whole exchange funnier, watching an Old West legend get gently roasted by a guy from an entirely different world. Then comes a full physical performance piece, not just a quick verbal joke but an entire character built from scratch on the spot. He becomes a stumbling, slurring, overserved customer trying to buy a round for the entire bar, repeating himself, swaying, completely committing to every wobble and mumble like he's performing a one-man play rather than telling a story. The bartender demands payment. The character claims he's broke. He gets pulled outside, and when he stumbles back in moments later, noticeably worse for wear, he announces drinks for everyone in the bar except himself, delivering one final slurred warning about what happens to people who drink too much. It's physical comedy stacked on top of verbal comedy, and the fact that every stumble looks completely spontaneous despite being clearly rehearsed is exactly what makes it so convincing. Toward the end, the conversation drifts into his own weight and fitness, or lack thereof, and rather than getting defensive about it, he leans all the way in. He jokes about being somewhere in between properly overweight and properly underweight depending on which direction he's trending that particular month.
You just sat on it and slid down the hill, and you come down, you'd hit a tree.
He claims to jog several miles daily, and just as the audience starts to buy it, he immediately undercuts himself, admitting the only evidence of that jogging routine exists on an old recording from when he was a teenager. It's self-deprecation delivered with total confidence, which is exactly why it works. He's not asking for sympathy, he's inviting everyone to laugh at the gap between what he claims and what's obviously true, and the bigger that gap gets, the bigger the laugh. What makes all of this remarkable isn't any single joke. It's the fact that none of it feels like material read off a card backstage. Every single bit sounds like it's being discovered in real time, even the ones that were clearly polished over years of performances. He never let a script dictate the moment. He read the room, adjusted his pacing, doubled down on whatever was working, and abandoned anything that wasn't, all while making it look completely effortless. That's the rarest skill in comedy, the ability to make years of craft look like pure spontaneous instinct. So here's the real question. Out of everything covered today, which one hit you the hardest? Was it the duck story, still one of the greatest pieces of stand-up storytelling ever delivered on live television? Was it the bathhouse disaster, or the physical commitment of that drunk character performance? Drop your favorite in the comments, tell us if we missed one you remember, and if you want more deep dives into the legends who built late-night television one unforgettable appearance at a time, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a lot more where this came from.